My name is Elias Vance, but I haven't used a byline in 5 years. I used to be a respected investigative journalist, chasing corporate corruption. I stopped when a massive regional power blackout hit my city. My wife and daughter, both dependent on medical equipment, were caught in the resulting hospital chaos and died. The official report blamed unforeseen equipment failure at the primary substation. The company in charge, OmniPower Global, a sprawling monopoly valued at over $800 million, paid out meager settlements and issued hollow apologies. I took the settlement money, a small, cold sum, and retreated. I buried my grief, but not my journalist's instinct. I knew OmniPower, run by its ruthless CEO, Julian Theron, operated with negligence, but the cause of that blackout felt too clean, too contained. A month ago, I received a cryptic, posthumous message from my father, a retired, low-level engineer who had spent 40 years working for OmniPower. A package containing a single, antique compass and a handwritten note. Eli, the blackout was not equipment failure. It was sabotage by design. The flaw is in the oldest component, the Bravo reactor core. The only key is the final maintenance log. Use the compass and never trust a clean record. My father's message was an accusation of corporate murder. I knew the Bravo reactor, a decommissioned, deep-level nuclear facility that still served as the primary nexus for the entire regional grid. It was the oldest, most inaccessible component in the system. I researched the blackout logs. The official cause was the failure of a single surge dampener at a tertiary substation. But my father's note pointed to the source of the surge, the Bravo reactor core, decades away from any official maintenance. I realized the brilliance of the crime. OmniPower had engineered a cascade failure, triggering a massive surge at the core, then letting it propagate outward, burning out the cheapest, most replaceable component, the surge dampener, kilometers away. The failure looked random, but the core was the silent weapon. I couldn't just sue them for negligence. I needed proof of intentional, systematic sabotage designed to create the blackout. I confronted my father's former colleague, an engineer still working at OmniPower, who had initially signed the equipment failure report. He was terrified. Eli, I can't talk. They control everything. But your father, he was right. They had a reason. Insurance fraud. The entire grid infrastructure was aging and failing. It was cheaper to cause a blackout, blame an isolated failure, and use the insurance payout to upgrade their most vulnerable substation rather than spending billions to upgrade the entire system. The blackout was a calculated financial transaction. My wife and daughter were casualties in a billion-dollar insurance scam. This is the story of how an $800 million energy giant caused a blackout that killed my family to commit insurance fraud. It's the most personal and dangerous investigation I've ever launched. Pause the video right now. Hit that like button if you believe I should expose every dirty secret of OmniPower. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the moment the CEO, Julian Theron, pays for his crime. And leave a comment. Tell me, what's the most common corporate cover-up you think needs to be exposed today? Your support fuels this fight. Let's find that log. My father's note mentioned the final maintenance log, the single record that would prove the intentional override at the Bravo reactor. I needed to find it, but my father had warned never trust a clean record, meaning the digital logs were scrubbed. The log had to be physical. The antique compass was the key. It wasn't ordinary. It was a radiation-hardened navigational tool used by engineers in the Bravo reactor's core during its decommission phase. I returned to the abandoned Bravo reactor site. It was secured by multiple layers of corporate security. I used my father's old ID card to gain access to the outer perimeter, posing as a freelance maintenance consultant. Inside the sprawling, silent facility, the security was digitized and impenetrable.
I used the compass. My father had rigged it to point not to magnetic north, but to the highest concentration of residual, non-standard gamma radiation, a signature that would only exist near the physical location of the hidden log, which he must have shielded in a custom vault. The compass needle swung violently, guiding me deep into the abandoned, dusty secondary containment zone, far from any working machinery. It led me to a thick, unmarked wall, a custom-poured section of high-density concrete. This was the vault. The vault was simple, but protected by a mechanical lock designed to withstand decades of decay. My father, knowing my journalistic lack of technical skill, had left the solution on the compass itself, a series of tiny etched numbers on the casing, which, when translated using an obscure engineering cipher, gave the lock's combination. I cracked the vault. Inside, there was no cash, no gold, just 3 items. The physical, final maintenance log for the Bravo reactor, dated 1 week before the blackout, a sealed, notarized letter from my father to me, and a highly detailed, color-coded corporate organization chart of OmniPower. The maintenance log was the smoking gun. It proved the blackout was an act of corporate terrorism. The organization chart revealed the extent of the conspiracy. The insurance fraud money was funneled through 3 key subsidiaries, all controlled by Theron's private shell company, Aethel Energy. I read my father's notarized letter. He knew I would find the log. Eli, the log is real, but Theron is anticipating this. He forged a second digital log that perfectly contradicts mine, creating reasonable doubt. He's counting on the physical log being dismissed as the work of a disgruntled engineer. You cannot win with just the log. You must prove the forgery is the source of the crime. The only way is to find the source code for his clean digital records. My father confirmed the core problem of my former career. The best whys are backed by flawless paperwork. Theron hadn't just faked the log, he had created a digital infrastructure, a special program to generate clean maintenance records, on demand, covering decades of negligence. I had the physical truth, but Theron had the digital lie, and I had to destroy the lie at its source. I have the physical proof of murder, but Theron has a perfect digital lie, a program that creates fake maintenance logs for decades of corruption. If I don't expose the forgery, I will be dismissed as a grieving conspiracy theorist. He has neutralized my main evidence. If you're still with me, you are deep in this dangerous game. Click the bell notification now so you get the alert the second I release the sequel detailing Theron's massive digital counterattack. Share this video with one person who distrusts big corporations. We need a massive public consensus to fight this. And drop a comment now. How does Eli prove a digital maintenance log is a fake? The answer lies in the code.
I used my journalistic contacts to find a former disgruntled programmer from OmniPower. He revealed that the program was known internally as the Janus system, a specialized ledger and record generation tool housed in OmniPower's highly secured off-site data center. The Janus system was designed to create a perfect history, adding minor, plausible maintenance reports for every period of documented negligence, ensuring that any external audit would find a clean, comprehensive record stretching back 30 years. This level of systemic fraud would not only implicate Theron, but the entire executive leadership. I needed the Janus system's source code to prove that the clean digital logs were fabricated after the events, based on specific post-dated inputs. I couldn't hack the data center. OmniPower was a state-level security risk. I had to use social engineering and my old journalism skills to get the code. I focused on the OmniPower corporate organization chart. I found a name, Sarah Jenkins, the Chief Compliance Officer. Sarah had no direct tie to the sabotage, but was responsible for ensuring the records were clean. She was Theron's gatekeeper. I knew compliance officers often had the highest moral burden and the greatest risk. I contacted Sarah anonymously, sending her a small, encrypted fragment of the Janus system's output, a maintenance record for a component that had been documented as failing years earlier. Sarah contacted me back, terrified. She confirmed the existence of Janus, which she had been forced to oversee, and admitted she hated it. She was trapped, fearing that exposing the system would cost her not just her job, but her freedom. I didn't ask her to steal the code. I asked her to expose the motive. Sarah, I need you to prove that OmniPower's intentional negligence caused other deaths. Theron wouldn't have risked the blackout for just one insurance payout. Sarah, risking everything, provided me with a detailed internal audit of every major unexplained equipment failure over the last 2 decades. The audit revealed a pattern of intentional neglect, failing to upgrade safety components despite multiple internal warnings, all to inflate profit margins. I cross-referenced this list with public records of utility-related deaths and fires. The correlation was terrifying. Over the last 20 years, 27 deaths and hundreds of injuries had occurred due to fires and accidents directly linked to the very equipment Theron refused to upgrade. The blackout wasn't the first death. It was the culmination of a decades-long policy of corporate homicide. I had the moral leverage. I sent Sarah the complete dossier, the physical sabotage log, the digital log forgery proof, Janus code analysis, and the insurance fraud breakdown. Sarah, you are complicit. The only way to redeem yourself is to use your access to give me the Janus system source code. I've exposed 27 deaths tied to corporate negligence. Sarah Jenkins has the power to give me the Janus system code, the key to exposing the entire executive leadership. If she agrees, she risks everything. If she refuses, the truth dies with me. This is the ultimate ethical crossroads. If you're still here, you are committed to holding this corporation accountable. Hit that subscribe button. The pressure on Sarah is immense, and we need every ally. Drop a comment now and tell me, what is the greatest fear Theron is hiding right now? We need to know his weakness to win. Sarah Jenkins, overwhelmed by the human cost of her complicity, agreed to help. She sent me an encrypted packet containing the Janus system source code. The code itself was a masterclass in deception. It wasn't just generating records, it was learning from external audit standards, constantly refining its fictional history to become more believable. It was the perfect digital lie. With the source code, I could prove that the clean digital maintenance log for the Bravo reactor was fabricated after the blackout based on Theron's specific input, proving that the digital record was a forgery. I now had the physical log of murder and the digital proof of the cover-up. I knew I couldn't go to the FBI. They would bury the file in bureaucracy. I needed to hit OmniPower from every angle simultaneously. I created 3 separate, highly detailed packages. Package 1, the fraud. The physical sabotage log, the digital log forgery proof, Janus code analysis, and the insurance fraud breakdown, sent to the Department of Justice, DOJ, and the Securities and Exchange Commission, SEC. Package 2, the homicide. The 27 deaths and the Janus code proving a decades-long policy of corporate homicide, sent to a consortium of top investigative journalists, my old peers, and the families of the deceased. Package 3, the system. A full analysis of the Bravo reactor's vulnerability and Theron's shell company, Aethel Energy, sent to the State Public Utilities Commission, PUC. The goal was to trigger 3 simultaneous, overwhelming crises: criminal investigation, public outcry, and regulatory seizure.
The world imploded. The press broke the story of the 27 deaths, citing my analysis of the internal records. The SEC immediately froze all of OmniPower's assets, including Theron's private shell company, Aethel Energy, based on the insurance fraud evidence. The PUC launched an emergency regulatory seizure of the entire grid infrastructure to prevent another intentional failure. OmniPower, the $800 million titan, collapsed into bankruptcy and regulatory seizure within 48 hours.
Julian Theron and his entire executive team were arrested and charged with multiple counts of fraud, conspiracy, and involuntary manslaughter. I had traded my silence and my grief for justice. I had forced the single greatest regulatory and criminal collapse in the history of the U.S. energy sector. Julian Theron's assets, including the $10 million he had funneled to his shell company, were seized. The court, recognizing my role as the primary whistleblower and the source of the evidence, awarded a massive portion of the recovered assets to the families of the victims and established a fund for future grid safety. My personal reward was substantial, enough to secure my financial future and establish a powerful new foundation. I called the foundation the Justice Grid. Its mission was not to generate energy, but to fund investigative journalism and ethical engineering dedicated to exposing infrastructure corruption that endangers human life. Sarah Jenkins, the compliance officer, was granted limited immunity for her cooperation. She now serves on the board of the Justice Grid, dedicating her life to ensuring corporate records are never clean records again. The ultimate legacy was the Bravo reactor. It was a symbol of corporate murder, but it still housed my father's memory. I used my foundation's resources to fund the ethical decommissioning and conversion of the Bravo reactor site. Working with ethical engineers, I supervised the transformation of the site into a massive, centralized, open-source data hub for grid maintenance and compliance. The new system, the Elias-Vance protocol, uses immutable blockchain-based record-keeping for every component in the grid, ensuring that maintenance records can never be forged or erased. The truth is now physically and digitally permanent. My final act was to place the antique compass, the compass that pointed not to north but to the truth, on the cornerstone of the new data hub. I am Elias-Vance. I lost my family to a corporate crime, and I used my skills to ensure that the lights will never go out on the truth again. I didn't get my family back, but I gave the entire country a safer, more ethical energy future. The $800 million empire is dismantled, the executives are in prison, and the power grid is secured by my new protocol. If this epic story of fighting corporate murder with investigative truth resonated with you, hit that final like button. Your support is what exposes corporate lies and funds ethical investigations. Subscribe and hit the bell. My journey ends here, but I have dozens of similar stories of vengeance and justice coming next week that you absolutely won't want to miss. Final comment. Tell me what form of corporate crime the Justice Grid should expose next. Banking fraud or military contractor corruption? Thank you for watching, for subscribing, and for believing in the power of truth. I'll see you in the next one.